Emily Wettleson. Welcome to Marketing Girly.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Emily is the e-commerce and operations manager at Miaou, which is an incredible fashion brand, and it has an interesting background in events and e-commerce. So we've got lots to chat about today. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to start with your current position. If you want to tell me a little bit about what you currently are doing.
Yeah, so I kind of run the digital team at Miaou, which is French for meow, spelled different, Miaou, which is actually the founder's nickname. That was her mom.
Really?
Yeah, so it's super
No
cute. It's like this
way.
family story.
Oh.
But yeah, so basically what I do there is we're a really small team. We keep it lean on purpose. But I do all of the e-commerce. I run the marketing team. I'm responsible for any in-person sales that we have. So sample sales, pop-ups, that sort of thing, events, pop-up events, really anything you name it, merchandising. I do all the buying for the website. So I'm really touching all aspects of the business. So yeah.
That's a lot. That goes under one title. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you've got a lot of moving parts. Can you
Yeah.
share? So your function, if you're leading the marketing, you're also in e-com, you're also in sales. So is it more of you're like managing a lot of different people? Are you in the nitty gritty? Kind of what I know every week probably looks different, but
Yeah.
can you give like a little bit of insight into what your role looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my main sort of like objective when I was hired, it was e-commerce manager, right? Which is, we have a small team, so I am doing a lot of the actual legwork. I do manage like probably 7 people, I would say, at any given time, depending on, we have a lot of freelancers. I would say that's a key to running a small business is just getting contracted help. So I manage a digital marketing manager. I manage a retention person for sort of our email and SMS marketing. I manage an art director. I manage our graphic designer. I'm also in Photoshop sometimes,
Okay, so
working
you're
that
getting in there.
angle. And yeah, so essentially, I'm always looking at sales. Like I would say that's like the number one thing I'm doing every day.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about e-commerce and what that side entails? I know on the podcast
Yeah.
we talk a lot about marketing and brand and social
Mhm.
influencer, but e-commerce is kind of a bit of its own thing. So can you share a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. E-commerce for us is direct to consumer, meaning it's we are selling directly to like you guys. And what that entails for us is working in Shopify, which is a great platform for selling things. It started a long time ago and it's been really built up. It's a very seamless integration. Another one is Squarespace, obviously. And so working in there, and it entails how the website looks, how it functions, which is user experience. And it entails sort of how the product is laid out, anything from like the images, the product descriptions, how much stock we have. There's a lot that goes into it. There's so many different angles about, what we're marketing at the time. I would say we have one launch a week of 10 to 15 products.
That many, really?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
And, the year is divided up into 4 seasons for apparel: winter, spring, high summer, pre-fall, winter again, and and so on and so on.
Wait, winter. Wait.
It's a spring, summer, high summer, pre-fall, fall, winter, holiday.
So
and then it
it's
starts
kind of
over again.
on the merge of the seasons. You guys are interesting.
Yeah, you have to,
Okay.
and we start selling spring, summer in like January, so everything's kind of ahead because people start shopping ahead of the
well,
season.
It's early November and we're already seeing Black Friday sales. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
I feel like
next
every
week.
year it's getting earlier and earlier.
Yeah, brands are always fighting for like market share because the cost of ads rises insanely during that time. So, you're always trying to get the most compelling offer out. And a lot of it is the percentage that you're doing. Everyone's like 50% off. And then so they're fighting there. And then they're also fighting in terms of not physically fighting, obviously, but like, competing. For earlier in the season. So, I would say most brands are going to start Monday the 17th, if not already. And Black Friday isn't until literally over a week later. Cyber Monday is, I believe, December 1st. So it starts really early.
Yeah, I feel like even now my friends and I are already like planning what we're going to get, what stores you want to look at. And then by the time Black Friday comes, I feel like most of us are done with the shop, or the things that we want are sold out by the time Black Friday rolls around.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think as someone that's looking at the numbers all the time, you see at the end of December, or at the end of October and the beginning of November, people are holding their dollars. They're not shopping yet. So, when for us, we just planned to launch right before, because we were like, we need people to buy stuff, obviously. Yeah. And, it ended up working out. It was really successful just because I think a lot of it is about the product. That's like the whole thing with marketing is you can market as much as you want, but if the product isn't good, there's no hiding. So you gotta have both.
You gotta got the good product, and you also gotta be able to communicate that well to your consumer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so you got this incredible background in e-commerce, also kind of combining some of the marketing, kind of combining a lot of different things in your current role. Mm-hmm. I want to take a step back in a minute and kind of talk about how you got into this niche, because I think it's very unique and very special. But I also know we were chatting before we started recording, and you mentioned that literally last night you had your Adidas collab launch. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's so exciting. Our founder Alexia Alkaim partnered with Adidas to create a capsule collection. I'm not going to say it's the only capsule collection, but it is the first one, and it's sort of inspired by motorsports, and the campaign has Devin Lee Carlson and Gabriette in it, and they were hosting the event last night at Bob's Big Boy in Burbank, which is this iconic diner location that sort of was inspired by the campaign video, which was very Tarantino. So it was this sort of beautiful diner event, and it was a great time. We had probably like 200 people come out and just celebrate and, have a burger and wear Miaou. We dressed a bunch of girls for it. And I think it's the first event we've had since May, when we had a pop-up in Paris for Fashion Week. So, I love to be a part of the events because that's my background, obviously. And it's really fun to be on the client side instead of the agency side of the event, and just like get to just say yes or no instead of like planning everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely sounds really fun. Can you tell me about some of like the inspiration behind the collab, or like how did it come about?
Yeah, I believe the Adidas team just sort of likes Miaou a lot and wanted they do a lot of different, like, it's with Adidas Originals specifically, so they like to sort of have a little fun more than the main brand, and they let Alexia have full design creative range with it, and so there's actually a really cool sort of black boot that's like a knee-high boot, but it's also a sneaker, so that's one main piece, and there's a few there's a tracksuit, there's like a motorcycle jacket, and then there's sort of a sporty Miaou inspired top, and it's all co-branded with the Miaou logo and the Adidas stripes, and it's just very feminine but also sporty, which I think is sort of the Miaou ethos. Like sexy and fun and cool. And yeah, I mean, it's been really beautiful to be able to work with a brand like that and bring it to life, because I've worked for like great brands, but not huge brands, obviously. So to get a window into that was really great.
As a smaller brand, getting to collaborate with such a giant, or some of the things that you kind of surprised you throughout that process, or even throughout the process of planning last night's event?
Yeah, I would say it's just interesting to see the layout of their organization. There's like a whole PR arm. They have newsrooms that are just, responsible for getting the PR and the word about the collection out, and they're global. So there's a New York newsroom, there's like a Paris newsroom and all this stuff. And then there's obviously the design team in Germany, and our founder flew there many times just to go, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of the city that it's in, but it is in Germany. And so there's all these different people involved on their team, and then it's like 3 of us, and we're like, hey, again. But yeah, so it's really cool, and they were all there last night too. And I think ultimately it's been a great sort of teamwork collaboration between us, and working with their team and their connections, and they have a great culture and marketing team that is based here in LA, and they're rocking it. So
Yeah.
it's been really cool.
Okay, that sounds like a ton of fun. Can you tell me a little bit about the event side? This is something that I've just started to dabble into a little bit with Marketing Girly hosting events, and it's just made me realize how much thought has to go into it and how much planning and how much work they are. And from being on the opposite side of attending an event and going to it and just being like, oh, this is pretty and fun and like this is great, versus being on the other side of just like all the planning. And I also think it's a really fun creative process as well, planning an event. Can you tell us what that process looked like for you, or kind of how you got inspiration for the event? Anything that you can kind of share?
Yeah, I think a big thing was venue. We knew we wanted it to be inspired by the campaign, and so Alexia's sort of vision was diner, and so starting there, and then once the venue was picked out, looking at what can we do with the space. So on the windows there was a storyboard, sort of how in movies there's like different frames for every scene. So we had an illustrator redo the storyboard up on the windows of Bob's Big Boy, which was really cool. So a lot of what they call scenic in the events industry, and just even down to the lighting. We had like literally branded Miaou Adidas crayons and placemats for people to draw on. We had a station where there was fake licenses being made. So it was like you get a little driver's license to take home with you, which I think is a really cute like takeaway for events. And yeah, I mean, there was like obviously a photo sort of moment, and there was a lot of thought that went into it. We worked with an amazing production company called Starkman, and they did an amazing job. They really did handle most of the creative production and sort of just presented it to us, which that's why I was saying I love being on the client side, because I could just get to look at stuff and go, yeah, that looks great. But I mean, it reminded me a lot of my past, and so it was fun to get back in there and sort of approve and be a part of it. I worked the door, like I was out there the whole night, like welcome.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I'm sure the event side too, especially when you get to see a vision like being brought to life to the fullest. I feel like that's really what events are, is kind of like building the world behind that idea, which I can imagine is a really fun experience to be a part of.
100%. And I think also a lot of it is like, I mean, there's so much that goes into the PR side of it. We had an amazing PR company, DLX, too, that helped us. And just from the guest list to dressing people to sort of on site, making sure we're getting the right people in the photo stations. And, like Kim Petras came out, Luna Blaze came out. There's so many amazing women that we were able to get in Miaou. And now we'll be posting that. And we'll be posting it, they'll be posting it. It's in a bunch of different news outlets. So there's all these levers that you get to pull when it comes to an event that like extends after the event, and like the earned media. And I think that's something that brand marketing teams obviously love. And I mean, we don't really have one. So it's like we're sort of trying to brand build while also doing all this other stuff. And so when we get to have an event or a pop-up, it's really special for us.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I want to step back a little bit and talk about your start into the industry. Obviously, you're now in fashion and e-comm and marketing. I know you mentioned before that your background kind of started in events. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is like my favorite part of my story, because it's just so random and it just really happened out of nowhere. I was in college and I was working at a PR internship, and I had met a girl there that was working another internship, and I kind of felt inferior. I was like, oh, I guess I have to get a second internship as well. Like, I'm not working 5 days a week.
You can't work more than me.
No. And it was over the summer, like I was in college, I think. And so I got this other internship for this company called Roaming Hunger, and they did food truck sort of marketplace operation. So they had this website where you could book food trucks. It was very new at the time. I mean, I'm old, so it was a long time ago. But I worked there over the summers, and the last summer before I graduated, they were like, you should just come here and work here full time after. And what ended up happening was they branched off and formed an ad agency where they just did sort of marketing experiential campaigns with food trucks and wrapping them and branding them. And we extended that beyond food trucks after a certain point, like doing trade shows and physical brick and mortar pop-ups. And it was a really crazy time. I mean, production is really intense, which is why when I was working on this Adidas event, I was always like so gracious. Like, I know how hard you guys are working. Like, you know, whatever I can do to make your life easier. But I remember when I was in college, I had a professor that was like, your first job is never going to be what you actually end up doing. And when I was doing that, I was like, no, I'm going to do this forever. Like, and then COVID happened. So it was like, there's no more events, which ended up being why I was able to pivot. And now, you know, everything happens for a reason. I love e-commerce. But yeah, the events world and especially experiential marketing, it's gotten so big. But at the time when I was doing it, like, you would call a farmer's market and be like, hey, like, we'd love to bring a branded food truck. And they'd be like, what?
Really?
They were like, do what? With who? And so yeah, it's really blossomed. Now everyone knows what a pop-up is and everyone knows sort of that whole thing. But at the time it was very novel and no one understood what I was asking for.
That's interesting because that's not even that long ago.
It was probably, I would say it was like 13 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you were doing it, I guess now.
2011, 2012 was when I was starting.
So maybe that is, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I feel like, yeah, not everybody does know what a pop-up is and we're so used to it. And I feel like social media has really kind of
you have to
accelerated
one up everything now.
Yeah.
It's like you have to do, you know, and even in retail stores now, like I Addicted, I don't know if you know what that is, but those stores are insane. Like the build outs they have in there. So there's just so much that goes into a physical space now that in whether it's a pop-up or a permanent place, that there's a lot that goes into it. And it's really fascinating, especially when it's a pop-up, it's temporary and you have to figure out how to do all this stuff, but also be nimble and be able to load in and load out really quickly.
Yeah. But I do think brands are absolutely trying to one up each other and doing things like, how are we going to get a line around the block? Or I think of like, when you said diner, it reminded me how like Skims recently did one, like a breakfast diner type of situation. And they are so extravagant and there's so much thought that goes into it. And then, but it has to be because it has to be shareable and people need to stop and when they're scrolling on social to watch it.
And it's also, how does it tie back into what you're actually doing? Because like when you see a Skims pancake, you're like, but what does that mean? You know, so you have to like integrate everything. Because for me, I'm like, I actually don't know what the Skims pop-up was about. And so I
actually, now that you mentioned it, I don't
know what the launch was. Yeah, I have no idea. And I mean, no shade. They're obviously a very successful company.
But we remembered Skims.
Yeah,
and the pop. So I mean, maybe you don't remember the product, but you remember the brand.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, those girls are amazing at brand building.
Yeah, Skims is killing it.
Yeah.
So tell me about that time. So you're in the experiential marketing space. The pandemic hits and everything in person completely stops. What was that like for you?
You know, I have always considered myself sort of a chill person, but not being able to work was very hard for me. And it drove me insane. And I mean, we all went through, that was a dark time for all of us. But I mean, I was able to sort of slow down and really start to assess like what's my next step. And it was scary because, you know, you never know what's out there. And I ended up getting a job at an amazing DTC company called Hello Bello, which sells diapers, which was not where I intended to go, but it is what happened. And it was actually really great it was owned by the person who started the Honest Company, which is obviously a huge company that Jessica Alba is involved with, and I don't know if she is anymore, but she was at the time. So it was great to be able to see a company that had just an amazing foundation, like the software engineers, the tech team, and the marketing team. I met a lot of amazing women that I'm still in touch with, that know all about growth marketing and sort of paid marketing. And they're like some of the people I still talk to this day. And so I think that was an amazing stepping stone. And it's how I got into e-commerce. I was actually working for the wholesale side of the business, and the e-commerce girl was sort of halfway out the door. And I didn't know that, but I started being trained on all the website stuff, and I was super eager to learn because that's my whole career ethos is I just always want to be learning. I never want to be bored. And when I'm not learning, I get bored. And that's when I start to decide, like, okay, I think it's time for me to take the next step. And there's also other career goals here and there, like, oh, I want to work for X type of brand. I want to work in X industry. Fashion obviously was a goal of mine. But she showed me the ropes. And so I moved over to the e-commerce team. And then that's sort of how that started.
I was going to ask you how you switched from experiential to that. So when you went and worked on, you said you went to the merchandising side on that company?
Yeah, I was doing
side?
sort of the liaising between Walmart and all the grocery stores that we were in.
Do your experience prior, did you have experience in that, or is that also new for you?
It was pretty new. I mean, I had experience. I mean, I'm pretty digitally savvy. So, you know, they were like, do you know how to do Excel and all these different things? And like I said, I was like, I need to be working. So I was sort of like, let me have a job. And I was open to sort of whatever. And I believe my title was like sales coordinator or something. I have no idea. But yeah, it was great. And I learned a lot about the wholesale side of the business, which is, you know, if you look at someone like Rode, they just entered that. They were doing only direct to consumer, and now they're in Sephora. And so that's like a huge shift for that business. And so to be able to see that side of it was helpful. And I mean, at Miaou, I do sort of have my foot in that door. You know, we're in Revolve, we're in all these other places, but it's a completely different beast. There's lots of different elements, you know, in-store displays, how your product's presented online. So to know that was helpful, I think.
Yeah, it ties into the roles that you had later on.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you, like, know that you wanted to work in this space? I think I saw that you studied comms, right, in college. So did you know, like, I want to go into marketing, e-commerce space? Were you, like, just, I know you mentioned kind of you, like, serendipitously got this role out of college, but, like, is this where you started to see your career path going? Were you still, like, totally open to where it led you?
Yeah, I think I always wanted marketing. Like when I was looking at jobs on monster.com,
Oh my
that's
goodness.
how long ago it was, I was always looking at PR marketing. So yeah, and the classes I was taking was also aligned with that. And I ended up being able to use one of the budgets that I made at my event job in one of my classes. So it was I was learning in the reverse way. And I stand by that. You know, I think getting a college education is amazing, but I learned the most from actually working.
Yeah, I am a big believer in that as well. That is like Sky Society's foundation, that experience matters more sometimes than education. And I am the same. I love my college. I got such great skills out of it. But I always felt I was learning more at my internships than I did in the classroom. And what I was learning on the jobs were things that were more applicable and also things that I got more excited about sometimes than I did in school.
Yeah, I mean, no shade to statistics, but I think working in Excel and actually calculating things and looking at a P&L is more helpful for me.
Yeah. But like it's good to learn Excel, but it's one thing to learn it. It's another thing to actually use it in a real world setting.
In a day-to-day.
Yeah. So those are two very different things. I know you mentioned that learning is something that you really value, which I also love. And that's something I always tell anybody that's asking me, like, should I take this opportunity or where should I go or should I accept this job offer? The advice I always give is take the job offer for the job that's going to teach you the most and where you're going to learn the most, because that is what's going to help you grow so much faster in your career than it is to, you know, work at a big company where you're not actually going to have a lot of impact or actually be doing a lot of things, but to really prioritize learning, especially when you're early in your career, but obviously valuable anytime in your career. How throughout your own career, because you've had a couple different positions, how do you identify if a company is going to be a place where you are going to get to grow and learn a lot?
That's a really good question. That really strikes a chord with me because when I left Hello Bello, I had sort of stopped learning. And, you know, I always think back like, you know, do I regret leaving? But I had decided that I want to go to a big corporation. And I wish I had someone like you to be like, but are you going to learn there? Because what ended up, I had never worked for a big company. And I was like, I feel like that's part of the experience that I'm missing, right? Yeah. And I wanted to see sort of how a larger corporation structures itself, and because I'm very interested in business in that way. And so I joined a large medical apparel company. It was not Figs, but it was a competitor of them. And it was a mess. Like I barely, there were so many people there. They were also going through an acquisition, but there were so many people there that they barely had any work for me to do. And it was such a bummer because I had like taken this leap of faith and I had thought like, oh, I'm going to learn about business this way. And what I learned was like, there's so many inefficiencies with large companies. And I'm sure there are a lot that aren't like that. But for me, it was a really good lesson in, making sure that when you are applying for jobs that you're asking questions about like, the day-to-day and sort of your responsibilities. And even just baseline, like working with recruiters. Like I got that job through a recruiter and, looking back, it's like, did they have my best interests in mind sort of thing? And so it was a great learning for me, I think now, like just sort of helps me now, when I got my next job, which ended up being in apparel at Trina Turk, I was like, do you have enough work for me to do? And sort of, getting really into the details. So I think it helped me eventually because now I'm able to assess that, like your question about like, how do you tell?
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to the questions you ask. And because, they're obviously asking you questions, they're interviewing you for a job, but you have to ask questions back and you have to sort of be assertive about that.
It's interesting to hear your experience. Obviously, I get to hear both sides. I've got women that absolutely love working at the big companies, and there's so many perks that come with it.
Right.
And there's definitely, I think it's just a fun conversation. Like, do you want to work at the smaller company or the larger company? But it's interesting also hearing the story of going to the big company to the small company, because I also find that's a really common path of like going to a larger company, maybe getting the experience, the structure, the big budgets that come with working at a big company, and then sometimes maybe craving going back to a smaller company where you also feel like you have a really big impact at the brand that you're
larger
working at.
companies, I think you're siloed a little bit, which is on purpose. But at what cost? But it's not black and white. I mean, they're both great.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure now working at Miaou, maybe you feel like you are a lot closer to the things that are being launched, or like your ideas get to have big impact. And depending on where you work, sometimes it can be a bit difficult to maybe feel that.
100%. I think, feeling like you're making a difference helps. And when you have such a 360 view of everything, I definitely feel sort of a personal attachment to how things perform.
Yeah. And tell me, so now I know you went over to Hello Bello, and then when you ended up moving over to Miaou, can you tell me a little bit about how that opportunity came across your plate?
Yeah, so I had started working after the medical apparel company at Trina Turk, which is sort of a resort wear brand marketed towards more mature women. And I really liked it there, but I was like, I'm learning, not as much anymore. And my next goal was I would like to work for a company that I am a customer of. That was sort of where I went from there. And so I started looking just for opportunities, and I wasn't in a hurry to leave by any means. I enjoy Trina Turk, and I loved that company. I loved my boss. The CMO was amazing. She's still there. Her name's Kim. She's literally the best. And but I was level with her. I just said, like, I really like it here, but I want to work for a company that I'm the customer of. And merchandising, the product on the website is great, but when you're looking at the product and you're like, I don't really want any of it, it was not as fun as it is now. And so the job came up, and what I did was I applied, but I also emailed directly, and I think that's really important, is sort of being able to find the hiring manager and reaching out directly. That can make a huge difference.
What did you say to the hiring manager?
I said, I love Miaou. I'm a customer. You can go look in the order platform.
Search up my name.
Yeah, exactly. And, I said, I'm willing to do whatever you guys need. And, I'd love to be your e-commerce manager. And it also happened that my experience aligned perfectly with what they needed, right? So it was a little bit of both.
Did you do anything in this time? Because you mentioned you were passively looking. I think there comes a time maybe when you are at a job and you do like it, but you're like, I would be open to other things. And so you're kind of passively applying to jobs. How did you go about like fixing up your resume? Did you, when you applied to this one at Miaou, did you customize it for the specific role, or any tips you have there?
Yeah, I am a big believer in changing your resume for different job applications. And even like tweaking the titles, like, you know, if your people that you are in touch with at your former companies are okay with that, you know, you're allowed to do whatever you want as long as it's truthful.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I think for me, as you get older, you have to drop things off, which is always hard for me because I'm like, but I loved my PR internship when I was in high school, and it's like, but
you got to keep your resume
no
one
one cares.
page.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, you know, things had to drop off, which is hard, but that's, I think, one main thing is sort of if there's something on your resume that doesn't necessarily apply, maybe don't have that on there. Or if there is, leave less space for it. If you know, because you don't want a gap, obviously, don't remove something entirely. But so that was part of it. Like the event planning didn't matter as much when I'm applying to these new e-commerce jobs. So when I'm focusing on the elements where I'm like, I was project managing, I was managing timelines, and things because it is really transferable, a lot of those skills. But that was the main thing. And yeah, so that, and when you're looking at a job application or the description, mirror the language. That's my biggest thing is, you know, if you did something that's in that description, basically repeat it.
In your resume or in the interview?
In your resume. And then also in the interview.
Yeah, I think that's the lowest hanging fruit is
100%.
Yeah, just because I always like to say the job description is the answer to the test. Like they're telling you exactly what they're looking for. Like you have the answers, but it's up to you to make sure that when they look at your resume, it's really clear that you meet those expectations in the job description. And sometimes it can mean just taking like 15 or 20 minutes and like adding like the exact phrases, the exact ways they word. Like you might have influencer marketing experience, but it might be using, you know, you might be talking about it a bit differently or wording it differently on your resume than it is on the job description.
Exactly. Yeah, it's either get more specific or less specific depending on what they're looking for and what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Okay, so you apply on LinkedIn. I love hearing about when people get jobs by applying to a job that they see online because it's not always that you
it's
get...
the only way I've gotten jobs besides my first job. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we love to hear that there's hope out there for
no,
applying to jobs online.
And believe in yourself also. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. So you apply online, you email the hiring manager. What was the interview process like for you?
Man, it was quick. They reached out right away, and I had my interview on Labor Day of 2024.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
On Labor Day.
Yes.
Did you go in person or was it on Zoom?
No, it was virtual. And then, you know, it was quick. It was like probably 2 or 3 days. Got the offer.
What?
Yeah.
Is that normal? Has that happened to you prior in your career?
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to think, actually. I think with the event planning, it did. Also.
Were you nervous to be like joining a company that you only got to know for a couple days?
So at this point, I think I'm pretty good about like understanding, like, okay, they want to interview me on Labor Day, like they need someone bad.
But also like you're making a leap and you're gonna go join.
Exactly.
Like it goes both ways, right? Like
yeah, do I want to even do that? Yeah. And I was like so gung-ho about Miaou. I love Miaou and I still do. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. Like, you know, I was a little concerned, like, what is this going to look like? Is it going to be really busy? But I had all this experience, you know, when you work in production, you're working 20-hour days. So nothing will ever be as intense as that. And I know that. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just like see how this is. And, you know, I did take a leap of faith to do that. And it worked out really well. But yeah, there were definitely some moments where I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned now that you get to work closely with the founder. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How's that like?
It's amazing. It's really fun. And I mean, I have in the past when I was working for the events company, I was working closely with the CEO as well. But I think it's always a balance between trying to be professional, but also like establishing rapport. Because my whole thing with the workplace is like we have to be here so much. Let's like make this a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
I'm one that's very much into like, you know, establishing bonds and relationships, and I think that makes it a lot easier because work isn't 100% of our life, but it's a lot of our life.
Yeah.
And so, and especially with any team I'm building, like that's a huge part of it. And so, you know, we've established an amazing rapport by now. And I think when you're first starting, it's like, okay, we have to figure out how you trust me. Like, I trust myself to deliver results and to get everything done that needs to get done, but you don't know me yet. And so that's always funny at the beginning when you're like, trust me. And they're like, but why? But yeah, so I mean, it's been great to be able, I have way more insight into the creative process of designing clothing and how collections get built out from the beginning, like the mood board phase even. And that's really enjoyable for me. And I never like have gotten to see that before.
Is there anything you can share about that? Because that also really intrigues me. I am very much a fashion girly. I love the fashion industry. I love to see what brands create, but obviously most of us might also love fashion, but don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. Anything you could like share that we might not know?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is based on the business side of things. There's, you know, what products are doing well for you and how can you iterate that core product in a way that is new, but also makes you confident enough that it will sell. And then there's also that part of the business where, you know, Alexia wants to be able to play and like design new things, but, you know, you have to be conservative and hedge your bets.
Well, corsets are obviously huge for Miaou, and I saw the new knit corsets as well. So, I mean, that's like, you guys are known for corsets, but like being able to iterate that for something that's more seasonal.
Yeah, so yeah, that's exactly it, because we had launched knits last year and they did really well for us, but they were actual just sweaters, like zip ups, the Vlad and the Odessa, which is like a boat neck, sort of tighter fitting ribbed sweater. And so we were like, let's merge them. And it's that corset is doing really well.
I've seen it.
So,
it's cute.
Yeah, it's really cute. I love that.
How about the time like from having an idea for a product and mood boarding it to the time that we actually get to see it and shop it? Is that a couple months? Is that a year? Like, I know it might vary, but how long does it usually take?
Yeah, that's pretty formulaic actually. So because there's wholesale markets, so you have to make a collection by a certain wholesale market. So our spring market was in September. So you have to have spring for next year, which will be sold in January to March, done by the September before.
Okay. Is it, and then are you also working on, so let's say, I know right now we're like in the holidays, but are you already thinking like next year's summer? I know maybe on the like production side, but how about for you in like marketing and e-commerce? Are you guys like thinking that far ahead already?
Yeah. So we just built out our whole spring strategy and we're just starting our high summer strategy because we have some really exciting collaborations coming up with other big brands, sort of like a nostalgic brand that, I mean, we're under embargo, so I can't say who, but it's going to be really exciting and very like beachy and fun. And so we're planning those shoots now and, you know, working to mood board the shoots, the lookbook, the e-commerce, and sort of, you know, even what the website will look like. And it's super fun. And it is sad because I'm like, it's cold, but, you know, like the thought of like, okay, maybe we'll go to Hawaii for a shoot.
Yeah,
you know?
like you're thinking really, really far ahead.
Yeah, super awesome.
Yeah. Anything else about the fashion industry that you're maybe excited about or trends that you're looking forward to?
I really like the idea of uniqueness, because I think, especially with TikTok and just the proliferation of creators, everyone is just trying to do their own thing. And so the idea that one person can wear something and it looks completely different on them. And I think that ties back into what we were talking about before, where it's like, you know, everyone can buy this one thing and then it's not cool anymore because everyone's wearing it. And just trying to make wardrobe a big priority. So, because I think if you look at a brand like, God, there's so many. I think Frankie's Bikinis is doing a really good job right now.
Yes. I also love their
wardrobing.
Adorable.
Exactly.
Adorable.
And like, if you go on a Frankie's Bikinis website now, I bet you on their homepage, like there's like some bikinis, but it's a full outfit. Like there's lots of different things going on there. And so I think wardrobing is a big thing that I'm seeing a lot of brands getting involved in, like just expanding their assortment. like if you look at Skims now, you know, they started as shapewear and they're doing clothes and and you look at a Kai even, like Kylie Jenner's brand, and like there's wardrobing there. There's all different types of clothes. So that for me is a big thing, which is like not a super fun answer. Like,
No, but
you
that's
know,
actually so interesting. I guess I never thought of it that way. But that's, yeah. So like having the complete outfit, not just that you're going there for like the top or the purse or the
exactly.
bikini, but you are actually getting to like, yeah, get the full outfit.
Yeah, because what a dream for a brand to be able to have someone wear head to toe. Like I'm wearing head to toe Miaou right now, besides the shoes. But I mean, it's like that's the best part is like if you can dress someone, and that was why it was fun for the event to dress all these girls, because it was like you know, the world's your oyster. Like you want to wear denim, you want to wear, because we just launched denim too. Like you want to wear a corset, you want to wear a knit set. It's super fun.
Do you guys, or not even just Miaou, but just you in general with fashion, how do you see influencer marketing like either changing or playing a big role? I feel like that's something that's changed so much in the past couple of years, and we're starting to see PR be like really big and important for a lot of fashion brands, and they're coming up with launches and how they incorporate influencers. What do you think the future of that will look like?
Dude, influencer marketing is such a crazy beast. I mean, I think the biggest thing right now that is very behind the scenes that is good for the listeners to know is like affiliate marketing, and sort of when you're clicking on link clicking, and Shop My, which is like the big platform that everyone's using right now.
Yeah, I've seen Shop My grow a lot.
Huge growth.
Yeah.
And we actually tried Shop My and it did not work for us.
Really?
And we are considering doing it again. Because it has grown so much. I think when we started, there was like different big competitors. There was like LTK, Shop My, and then there's like some other ones that I'm forgetting. But like that is just a huge thing right now, and it sort of runs in the background. It's not really something where you need it to be at the forefront of your business, and so it's just this thing that's running in the background that like is generating companies tons of revenue.
But I actually think, you know, are you familiar with the Bode?
Mm-hmm.
So the founder, she shares a lot of content on TikTok about being an entrepreneur, which I love. And she went into like the behind the scenes of how much it costs to be on Shop My. And you have to like,
it's very
expensive. I thought like, oh, you just sign up as a brand and be like, you pay a commission as a brand every time something is sold.
There's a platform fee, yeah.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's like, what, like $10,000 a month? It was I forget what she said, but it was a lot.
Yeah, I think it depends on the scale.
Yeah,
and like what you're utilizing it for. Because there's different ways you can gift people. You can actually pay to have people post. And I think that's another thing about influencer marketing is this whole like, because you know there was a huge Revolve lawsuit where they got in trouble for like paying creators that weren't saying like this is an ad. So, you know, white labeling is an interesting, tricky space where, you know, if you're paying someone for product, then, you know, the legality of like, do they have to put ad? And that whole phenomena is really interesting. So but I do think UGC, user generated content is huge. And I do think it performs well for a lot of brands, and it really is a beast. And I do think there's a future there, but I think the level of authenticity is really important. And that's why for us, like Shop My didn't work, I think, because the creators that were on there at the time, I think there's a lot more people on Shop My now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like not our customer, and our customers weren't resonating with it.
Yeah, but now it's grown. And it doesn't feel like an ad because it's just like a selfie story and I'm wearing this top and like shop, like buy it here, and it can feel a lot more authentic and less like you're being pushed an ad.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, we talked about so much of this. Like I could keep asking you questions about this topic because this is like personally so interesting to me. But I know we've kind of talked back on your career. We talked about fashion. We talked about going into events. Is there any other advice you want to give the marketing girlies?
Oh my gosh, that is so much pressure. I mean, I hope you guys all get amazing jobs, but I think for me, it's like just be honest with yourself. Like, what do you actually want to do, and what is fun? And you know, you may be good at something, but is it what you want to do? Like, that is a struggle for me. So I think just like your ultimate fulfillment will probably come from what makes you happy versus like what you're good at.
I love that. And also I think adding on to that it doesn't have to happen right away. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to like get that dream job right out of college or in the first couple of years, but you have to learn about
There's
yourself.
trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can testify to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So amazing advice. So much fun chatting with you and hearing more about your career journey. So thank you so much for coming on Marketing
Oh
Girly.
my gosh, of course. It was so fun. Thanks for having me.